What's up? This Mosquito Spray, and you're tuned in to Mosquito Spray's Boxing Breakdown. Today I want to touch on this fight that just recently got announced, and big salute to His Excellency Turkey Al-Sheikh, getting us these good fights. But a fight that's supposed to be happening in November will be Brian Norman Jr. defending his WBO title against Devin the Dream Haney. I want to just share a few thoughts on this fight and what I think about it. So first we'll touch on Brian Norman Jr. He's currently the WBO champion. He's rated number one in the ring ratings behind the ring champion, Jerron Business. And of course, on this channel, we hold the ring championship in the highest regard because these other sanctioning bodies are kind of all over the place. And the ring champion is the lineal champion. And the lineal champion, of course, goes all the way back to the beginning of boxing. So that's the one, we're going to show the most respect for. But like I said, Norman is WBO champion, number one in the ring ratings. Currently has a record of 28 wins, no losses, no draws, 22 knockouts. He's kind of stepped up, I'd say, over his last 3 fights as far as competition goes. He got a big win over Giovanni Santillan, brutal fight, man. He scored a sensational knockout, kind of put him on the map. I know people were kind of down on him for his couple of fights he had before then with Quentin Randall and Boca Chica, but he bounced back in a big way against Santillan, and he became the WBO interim champion that night. And I believe once Crawford moved up, they elevated Norman to full champion. So, his first defense, he stopped Derek Cuevas, I believe, in the second round. Looked good that night. And then here recently, a couple of weeks ago, he went out to Japan and just, scored was possibly the knockout of the year right now over Jin Sasaki. And, he's kind of on the rise, man. He looked like he's improving, getting better. I mean, the one thing he does have is power. Possibly the biggest puncher in the division. Of course, a lot of people were hoping for, to get the fight with him and Ennis, but Ennis, said he had problems making weight and has moved up. So maybe we'll get that fight in the future. But for now, Norman is reigning at 47. And next up, we got him and Devin Haney. And so let's touch on Devin Haney. Now, Devin Haney is coming up in weight from the 140-pound division, where he is the WBC champion. He has a record of 32 wins, no losses, no draws, 15 wins by knockout. He's, as far as in the welterweight division, he's not in the top 10 right now as far as the ring ratings. But as far as what he has achieved prior to that, of course, at lightweight, he was elevated to the full WBC champion in October of 2019. You remember the whole franchise champion thing with Lomachenko, and so Haney was elevated to full WBC champion, and he defended that title 4 times. Then on June 5th, 2022, he became undisputed and lineal champion by going over to Australia and defeating George Kambosos by unanimous decision in a dominant way. And he made 2 defenses of the lineal title, and of course in the rematch with Kambosos, and then a fight with Lomachenko. Of course, there were some people, and I'm not gonna lie, including myself, that thought Lomachenko won that fight. But as far as the almanac says, and on this channel, we don't go by what we think should have happened and all that. We go by what the almanac says. So he beat Kambosos and he beat Lomachenko to make 2 defenses of the lineal title. Then after that, he moved up on December 9th of 2023, took on the WBC super lightweight champion, Regis Prograis. And Haney was dominant that night, man. He dropped Prograis, shook him a time or 2, and won that fight by unanimous decision. And he on April 20th, 2024, in his first title defense, he took on Ryan Garcia. And that fight didn't turn out so well. Now I've got to touch on something about that fight. Prior to that fight, came on a live and actually did a breakdown on that fight the night of the fight, pre-fight or whatever. And one thing I had pointed out as far as Haney was concerned was that he has trouble getting clipped with left hands, whether it be straight left hands from southpaws, a la Jojo Diaz, Lomachenko, or left hooks from conventional fighters. Remember the 10th round, the end of the 10th round against Linares. Yeah, Linares landed a right hand, but the punch that put that chin on that other shoulder was that left hook, and Haney, was walking back to his corner a little shaky. So I pointed that out that night that, Haney needed to, put emphasis on holding the phone, because everybody knew when it came to Ryan Garcia that big left hook, just, be on your P's and Q's with that. So, in the lead up to the fight, Ryan Garcia, whether he was real, he was portraying, things he was allegedly partaking as far as, whatever the case may be with, drinking and whatnot. So, and Haney, was coming off the pro grade victory. So, majority of people thought Haney would win the fight. Based on those factors, with what Ryan Garcia seemingly maybe not focused leading up to the fight, Haney, being on the uptick, but still with the susceptibility of Haney to that left hook, possibly the left hook, I said before the fight that I kind of tilted it 60-40 in favor of Haney. Now, when they did the ring walks and everything, they got in the middle of the ring, the ref gave instructions, the bell rung. The thing I had pointed out happened 30 seconds into the fight. Garcia clipped Haney with a left hook, and it was downhill from there. I understand what happened after the fight or whatever with the testing or whatever the case may be, but I think that the problem was Haney does not hold the phone. He threw a bow and arrow jab, which kept getting him caught in exchanges, or with Ryan Garcia just basically timing him when he threw the jab, because he left his right hand down, and it was there to be he was there to be touched, but it turned out to be an issue. Garcia originally got the victory, but the stuff came back or whatever, and so they turned to a no contest. So Haney on still at this point undefeated with 32 wins, no losses, 15 knockouts. My thing is this, man. Based on the last few fights, you go over their careers so far, we'll say Norman Jr.'s best win so far have been his last 3 fights, in my opinion: the Santillon, the Cuevas, and the Sasaki. He was brought up kind of slowly by promoters and managers or whatever the case may be, but he is showing himself to be what I think is a problem at 147 pounds. Haney, meanwhile, as far as his career, you have to respect it. I mean, he's a 2-division champion. He was undisputed lineal champion at 35. Came up to 40. Took on one of the toughest guys there. Took his belt in dominant fashion. His top wins, I give him credit for. I'll call it solid wins over Linares and Jojo Diaz. Like I say, he got the 2 wins over Cambosis. The Loma win, regardless of what we think or anybody think, I mean, it's a win. In the Almanac, he beat Lomachenko. Got to give him credit. Got to give him credit for coming up, taking Prograde's belt the way he did. So, as far as resume, experience, and things like that, I'd have to give Haney the edge. Norman is a young fighter. He's still learning, and he's improving. But as far as experience goes and what we know, you have to, give that edge to Haney. But I'm not here today to make any kind of declaration or determination as far as what I think is going to happen in the fight, but I will pose this question. Now, the night of the Garcia fight, like I said, you had the issue going into the fight. I saw it. I'm sure there were other people that saw it. Haney getting clipped by Jojo Diaz, getting clipped by Lomachenko, getting clipped by Linares, and then, the big puncher that Ryan Garcia, was. figured it could be a problem. It turned out to be a problem. Now, after that fight, since that fight, the only sighting we've had of Devin Haney was that Times Square card against Jose Ramirez, who in his own right was at one time a very solid fighter, a former unified champion at 140, but he's lost a step, in my opinion. People complained that night about how Haney didn't engage. He moved a lot, and it just wasn't a good showing for him. So the question I have is this: Norman is an upcoming fighter. You know what I'm saying? He's a champion. He's defended his title a couple of times. We know it's no question about his power. Haney, as far as the problem that he had, the issue, the technical flaw, that's he's gotten himself in trouble for. Has he done anything to show you that he is ready to get in the ring with a young athletic guy with a big punch like Brian Norman Jr.? Man, that's all I got. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. But I appreciate y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you be notified whenever I put something out. But I'm gonna get out the way. Y'all take it light.